Summer concerts, pool parties, chill nights under the stars. We're stocking up our closet so you're ready to look your best for all of it. At Plato's Closet in West Ashley and North Charleston, we're buying all things summer. So bring in your tees, tote bags, sandals, sunglasses, and more. We pay cash on the spot for gently loved name brand looks. Plato's Closet is the go-to destination for trend-forward teens and young adults who support local and shop sustainable. Visit Plato's Closet today. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
Little Johnny Cash says we're back on the Northland Sports page. Daddy sang bass, Mama sang tenor as the Father's Day Eve theme continues. Speaking of Johnny Cash, we're going to talk about a weekend that brings a lot of cash into our area here in a moment.
Oh, yeah.
So again, it's Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook. We are joined, as we are annually about this time, by Shane Bauer, the Executive Director of Grandma's Marathon. Shane, I love talking to you. We need to do it more than once a year, but happy to have you again. Good morning, my friend.
Hey, good morning, guys. Always happy to be on. Thanks for having me again.
No problem, because believe it or not, and I'm sure you believe it because you've been at this for a while, we're just 1 week away from Marathon Day. We know the preparations begin long before that, but give us an update. What's left on the proverbial checklist with, a little under 7 days, because obviously literally 7 days, there'll be a lot of folks done by 10 after 11 on Marathon morning.
Yeah, I'd say by the time we're done, we get through this weekend. Obviously, we'll work all day today and tomorrow and through next week. But I'd say by Sunday night, we're probably pretty well set. It's the little things, we got a few more volunteer bundles to get out to some of those folks, and little details over at Bayfront or down in Canal Park to take care of, and phone calls to make. But at this point, sometimes you're glad for the extra week. But I feel like we have such an extraordinary staff that they just pick things up when they need to, and I think we're all set.
Shane, last year we talked a little bit about the move to Bayfront afterwards. I'm wondering what's new and exciting that we're going to be doing around the race again this year.
Yeah, always something, right?
Yeah.
These days. And once again, it's construction related. We got the seawall construction behind the deck. So they are going to pave a path middle of this coming week here for the runners to be able to go through there and continue the traditional route. However, spectators will not be able to get back through that mess they have right now. So we've had to add another bridge. We do these, with the help of Jamar, we do these pedestrian bridges across the race course. And with probably the biggest field we've ever had this year, it's going to be hard to get everybody from Canal Park over to Bayfront, back to their shuttle buses, move in that direction. So right along the Orbo, the William A. Irvin, we'll put one of the bridges so that spectators and runners returning from their finish line can get up and over all the runners on the race course. And of course, we'll have ADA accessibility and all that too. But if you can, to go up and over there, and then you'll be able to get to Bayfront from there. So it's really kind of one main route into Bayfront this year, and it's going to be going through the deck campus. So with that, we're activating that spot right by the bridge across from the Orbo. We'll have a Michelob Ultra bar in there where runners can redeem their drink tickets this year, in addition to redeeming them at Bayfront. There'll be cheer sections, a set of bleachers in there. I know the deck is going to do their own bar where you can get other items and concessions. And then over at Bayfront, we got food trucks this year, 4 or 6 different, vendors, different kinds of food. And all the activities that have been over there with massage and the awards, and of course the entertainment and the big bar will all still be over there. So always changes around construction, it seems like, but we've always been willing, able to adapt, and we appreciate the city of Duluth and what they do to help us work through it all.
Sounds like one giant party. It's always a good time. I've been part of that party many times before. I used to be a Grandma's Weekend participant when I would walk the William A. Irvin 5K. And Shane, I have a confession to make, because last year on the date of the 5K, I put a social media status out there that said, give me a year and I'll get back at it. Well, confession is this year I'm not in the race, but part of the reason I'm not, my own fitness be damned, if you will, that race filled up so fast. Holy cow, the registration closes because the interest is high.
Yeah, and we want you to get back at it. We miss you at the finish line, Brian. It's can't wait to see you cross again one of these years, whether it's that one or the Fickers. I know I've seen you finish that one, or whatever it is, but you guys are a sponsor, so you do have entries out there, even once it's full. So give us a call on that.
Well, there you go. I didn't realize that piece. The pressure's on me to get back in it then. But my point of telling you that little anecdote was the interest level, you've got to be just thrilled with it, because registration opens and it doesn't stay open very long, because the amount of people that want to be part of this is huge.
Yeah, that's really changed. 2016 with the 40th anniversary caught everyone off guard, but then it kind of returned to normal, and folks just figured they can take their time and see how training goes and get in. Well, this year was another surprise, and now I don't think that is going to change, because we're building up towards the 50th in 2 more years here. So I think when the registration opens for next year this fall, you're going to see a lot of people gearing up again. And then, of course, the 50th, I'd say register the day it opens, because that's an absolute huge event. So
that will be a good one. I joke about, the reason I haven't been in a few of them. Let's be honest, the real reason might be this show, because doing a 5K on a Friday night, I'd still be breathing heavy on Saturday morning. But again, that might be an indictment on my fitness. But I want to talk a little bit about fitness, because there's a lot more to this weekend than just the races. Sometimes the fitness expo is one of the biggest deals as well.
Well, yeah, that's what this event's about. I mean, that's our mission, is to keep people active and conscious of healthy lifestyles with the kids, starting at that age, with their events and what we do through the Young Athletes Foundation throughout the rest of the year. But that's the mission of the entire organization. And I think it's had everyone talks about the economic impact, which is a big deal, I know, but I always talk about the impact that this event has on this community's health collectively, and, mental health as well as physical health. That's the big deal to me. And I think one of the coolest stats I saw, I believe it was 2017, was when Duluth was rated the most fit place in the entire country by Fitbit, who tracks, sleep and activity and all this. And I just thought that was pretty cool. And I think we probably have something to do with that one way or another. Or like Jim says over at Tortoise and Harry's, you wouldn't have 3 running stores in this town without a marathon or an event like this happening, in this community, in a market this size. And those impacts are, that's the mission of the entire organization, I think. So
that checks out. That's pretty awesome for Duluth to be tabbed the most fit. I believe in that survey. Dave Cook and I were probably not included, but we are chatting with Shane Bauer, the executive director of Grandma's Marathon. Always a good time to talk about the number of events that will be showcased next weekend. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, so Kansas City Chiefs got their rings the other day, and apparently there's some misspellings and whatnot. And you always see people, when they get their grandma's medal, finishing medal, that they have in their teeth. They hang them on the walls forever. What goes into designing those? What goes into designing the medals, knowing that they are going to be cherished by everybody who finishes?
Boy, that's a great question, and it goes back to our staff. I mean, we have one of the best staffs in the industry, and there's really 8 of us that work full-time year-round on this event. And other organizations that are very comparable to ours have over double that amount working on putting on a similar size event. It's the 10th biggest marathon in the country now. And when you compare it to those that are in that same range, it's just extraordinary. We have just incredible staff, and our creative director completely handles everything that has to do with that. So, and she's in the position I used to be years ago. In the early 2000s, I was the design director, and she does such a better job than I did. It's just amazing. You just let her run with it, and I don't think our marketing and our creative, the graphic design part of the theme each year and all that, I don't think it's ever been better. And it's literally just let her go. No oversight whatsoever. She takes care of every detail around that stuff. Just amazing. Christy Willett.
Shout out to her, certainly. So Dave talked about the medals. I want to talk about some of the folks that may have a shot to be a medalist, because on this show, Dave and I talk a number of sports, and we bring up players from time to time. So bring up some of the members of this field that folks should be watching for.
That's another good thing to talk about. It's kind of crazy. This would technically normally be a down year, because it goes with the Olympic cycle. We see building up towards the Olympics, everyone's trying to qualify. Everyone wants to get a fast time, and you get all these athletes from all over the world that really focus on 3 marathons in our country. From what we can tell, generally it's the California International out in Sacramento, Houston, oftentimes, and then Grandma's Marathon. And it's not only because the race courses are fast and they know they have a good chance of qualifying, it's also the timing. This time of year, there's not a lot of other marathons around. Not a lot of places you can do this, at this time of year. So it works out well. And then we see that build up to like last year was a huge year for athletes. We had, 6 women under 228 finishing. It was just an extraordinary field. So this year should be the year that it bounces back and starts over, and we will see the bigger name athletes gradually start coming back over the next 3 years. Well, it hasn't been that way at all. We've got a crazy field this year, and it's really the half marathon, which is also unusual. It's about a third of the prize money in that. The marathon's obviously the big show. But obviously the big one is Dakota Lindworm, and maybe that has something to do with it. But with her coming back, she's become so close to Grandma's Marathon, and now with qualifying for the Olympics, and she's kind of become sort of the poster runner for the event, I guess, lately. But we've got returning champions coming back this year, and some new ones that just came out of, just decided it must just fit with their training. So Sarah handles all that. Sarah Culver in our office deals with all the elite athletes, and she couldn't believe it either. And normally what would be a year where we can accommodate everyone, she started having to say no to runners in March. So it's going to be a good year to be at the finish line and see how it all pans out. There should be some great competition in both races, but I think a lot more people are going to be down there for the half marathon finish this year. It's early, but I think the draw is going to be there.
Certainly looking forward to an exciting race day. You mentioned Dakota, Shane. There's an opportunity for folks to meet and greet with her, correct?
Yeah, I believe there's still a few tickets available for Thursday night next week. There's a sort of a fundraiser reception, with hors d'oeuvres, and she'll be talking, and you'll have a chance to meet her and get autographs and that sort of thing. That's new this year with her qualifying for the Olympics, obviously. So, but she'll also be at the expo. She's doing a shakeout run on Friday morning, I believe, and then going straight to the expo after that, I think at the Duluth Running Company booth. Yeah, you'll be able to catch her throughout the weekend. She's so personable. I mean, she's just the perfect ambassador for Grandma's Marathon for a Minnesota runner. But yeah, there'll be a few opportunities throughout the weekend. You'll be able to catch up with her.
That is excellent. So, Shane, one of the most predictable things in Duluth is that Grandma's will always be a great show and a fun weekend for our entire community. One of the most unpredictable things for anything Duluth related is the weather. I'm looking ahead to next Saturday's forecast, and I'm looking at it and I see a low of 53, a high of 62, and a 50-50 shot at some rain. If I'm a runner, I'm thrilled. If I'm in charge of the party, I'm not. How do you do the half empty, half full with that?
Well, that's more half full than half empty. It's more we got to have a good morning for the runners. That's always the top priority. It's too bad sometimes when the weather doesn't work out. We don't get as many people who want to stick around afterwards, obviously, and celebrate their run. That's understandable, and we'll all live. But if it's, the heat and humidity are the worst. And I like the trend we're in right now. I like the track in the forecast. It doesn't seem at the moment like it's going to get too bad in that regard. And 50-50 rain, you know how that goes around here. It could be a beautiful afternoon. So,
well, not to mention there's a week to go yet. This could change entirely.
Yeah. And air quality is the other one. Obviously, we have to keep an eye on now. Little scare at last year, a few days before the event. And I know the forecast is for that to be not as often this year, but that's something that we definitely have to watch now too. So you just never know. And you can't worry about it too much until you get closer. But we'll start our meetings on Monday already and talking about it each day leading up. We have a whole advisory committee, and we'll pull in people where needed and kind of have a whole new plan around the planning in that regard. So,
Brian,
we'll be ready.
Dad used to say sometimes you have to pay in advance for stuff later. We can have rain this year. We can have rain next year, but in 2 years,
got to get that 50th right.
62 degrees and bright sunshine. 2 years.
Yeah, it's always a lot to ask of Mother Superior out there to give us a cool morning and a warm afternoon. But, I've only lived here since 99. I know it can flip in, matter of minutes. So as long as the runners can have a good morning, we'll start with that and then hope from there, I guess.
So, Shane, to close, you mentioned your top-notch staff a handful of times, and certainly they deserve all the kudos in the world, but Grandma's also really thrives on their volunteers. They do a heck of a job. You guys looking good for numbers, and talk a little bit about what they mean to this race, because it seems like, aside from the runners themselves, they're kind of the heart and soul.
Yeah, they mean everything. That's the number one that has built this event is the community. We call it the world-class event, the small-town charm, and that small-town charm is really what keeps runners coming back. They do marathons all over the place. A lot of people are doing the 50 marathons or half marathons in 50 states now. and they come from everywhere. But then when they come to this race, they're used to running downtown cities and all these other big marathons. They come to Duluth and see how this community comes out, and they feel like celebrities, and then they want to come back. So we have one of the highest retentions in the industry in marathons at around 36%, because they just want to keep doing this one again. And it's literally because of the volunteers and how they take care of the runners and how they make these runners feel when they come to this community. So it's number one. I mean, it's a community-built event, and there couldn't be anything more important, I don't think, than the volunteers coming out each year. And I think we're pretty well set. They're doing a good job again.
I would agree with you on that, Mr. Shane Bauer. You are unforgettable. We're bumping you out with a little Nat King Cole unforgettable. You just talked about return business with the marathon. We get return business with you with this annual appearance each and every year, previewing the big day, which again is 1 week away. But Shane, I got to tell you, you could actually be a linchpin on this show, because you and I are friends, obviously, on social media. Hoops Brewing is one of our big sponsors. Your reviews of Hoops beers are quite good as well.
Well, they don't make a bad one, that's for sure. Just pick one and just close your eyes and pick one, and you're going to have a great beer in your hand.
See, look at you. Sure. You would be great on this show. You, my friend, you and I are overdue for a beer. Let's get together and do that. Pleasure talking to you again today.
Yeah, thank you both. Have a good weekend, you guys.
Absolutely. Looking forward to a good weekend next weekend as well. The big marathon day. Next weekend is just going to be simply awesome, because the marathon on the 22nd, and then on the 23rd, the Harbor Monsters are back home. We'll be live. Speaking of hoops, we'll be down there from noon to 1 on Sunday.
Well, that's what I thought you were going to get at there. Saturday is that. Sunday, you can come see us at Hoops.
Right. Lots of energy throughout the weekend. Same for this weekend, though, too. Don't forget Father's Day tomorrow. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. But right now, it's going to be time to talk Boys of Summer when we come back. Nick Nelson of Twins Daily. Twins are hot, but it's been a roller coaster ride. Stick around. We'll be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by IQ Bar.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
Where do you go to rock and roll? You can go right here at the Northland Sports page. We take a lot of pride in our music selections. Still continuing with a little Father's Day theme to the music today. Your mama don't dance. I don't know if mine does. Everybody else in my family seems to. My daddy don't rock and roll. I guess that's technically fair now, but he certainly did his share when he was among us. My dad loved music, and we all do. We love this show as well, and we love having sponsors behind it, Dave Cook.
Let's start with the OG. Arola Architecture Studio, the group that stayed with us when chips were down and COVID was up. Ryan was always there helping us out. Hoops Brewing, Mike Regan at Christensen Group Insurance. The Blackwoods Group, including their locations on London Road. Blackwater right downtown. Tavern on the Hill, Proctor in Two Harbors. Mount Royal Bottle Shop. Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies. Comfort Systems of Duluth. Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai. Advantage Emblem and Screen Printing. Kraus Heating and Cooling, your Carrier HVAC authorized dealer. And Assisted Living Locators, free to use, helping your loved ones locate assisted living, memory care, and independent living at www.assistedlivinglocators.com/Duluth.
Absolutely. So thankful for our sponsors. We want you to buy everything that they're selling. We played Buy or Sell a while ago, and we wrapped up the last one rather quickly because we talked about the Twins' new City Connect uniforms. And we wrapped it up quickly because we wanted to talk more about it with our next guest, who is Nick Nelson with Twins Daily. He's now very much a chiseled veteran guest on this show, and he got to see those uniforms in person last night. So, Nick, first of all, good morning, and what did they look like to you on the field?
Good morning. They looked pretty good out there, I thought. I'm still not totally sure how I feel about them overall. Like, the yellow seems like a weird choice to me, but I applaud the effort. It's cool. It's cool to have kind of a different style, and they played a good game. It was fun to be out at a pretty packed house. I haven't seen Target Field that full since the playoffs.
Yeah, if we could just get Flo Rida for every homestand, I think we'd have a pretty good crowd.
Right.
Did you stick around for that as well?
I did, yeah. It was a good show. I like Flo Rida. It took me back to my college days.
Very good. It would do the same for me. You mentioned a good show, and I'm glad that by the end, the Twins had put together a good show. Great come from behind, extra innings, walk-off winner last night, because as I was kind of putting together, well, how am I going to start the conversation with Nick? After that first inning grand slam off SWR, I thought, well, I'm going to tell you about the uniforms. I'm going to say, let's retire them because we lost to bleep in Oakland, but I can't go there anymore.
Yeah, no, the uniforms are all good. They're the comeback uniforms, I guess. It was a good game. It was good to see the offense fight back and the pitchers kind of settle in from there. A nice walk-off and a big game from Kepler, who's been slumping a bit.
Yeah, Kepler last night, 4 out of 6 runs driven in for the Twins, courtesy of Max Kepler, and he takes 99 off the elbow. I feel like the narrative, yes, you're right, he's been struggling a bit of late, but the narrative around Max Kepler is changing, because a year ago it was, one of these guys, Polanco or Kepler, has got to go, and I think a lot of people would have said Kepler at that time. Had that great second half, and he's arguably been one of the best players on the Twins this year.
Yeah, it's been great to see him come around. It was kind of, you were starting to wonder how his Twins legacy was going to be viewed if it continued to go as it was heading into last year, or really even heading into the second half of last year. But he's looked like an all-star caliber player for pretty much like a full season's worth of games now. So if he can keep that rolling here for the rest of this season, it's going to be a huge factor for the Twins.
Plus, Brian, he had to at least started to pay attention that the Twins are sending players down willy-nilly, so you had to start playing well. Nick, what do you think about the demotions of Kirilloff and Julian?
I mean, it's tough, If you would have told me that by this point in the season, those two and Matt Wallner would all be sent to the minors for pure performance reasons, I probably would have a hard time believing that the team was above 500. So I think it speaks to how well a lot of other people are playing, how healthy they've been generally, outside of those missteps. You just hope they can get right. Julian has not looked very good since going down. I'm not sure if Kirilloff has started playing at AAA yet, but I wrote about this at Twins Daily. I actually just published an article today about Matt Wallner. He really struggled when he first got sent down too, and has managed to turn it around and has looked really good over the past couple weeks, taking much better at bats, showing better discipline, and continuing to hit a lot of home runs. So you hope that Julian can follow the same path, and Kirilloff too, that they can just face some lower competition, build up their confidence and come back, because these guys are key factors for the Twins in their second half outlook.
So you mentioned posting an article on Twins Daily. Let's go there right away. Now, our longtime listeners have heard you on this show quite a bit, but we always assume there's somebody tuning in for the first time. Dave and I go there almost daily, so we love Twins Daily, but tell the folks that may not know what exactly that is.
Yeah, thanks. TwinsDaily.com. It's a big independent fan coverage site. Basically, we have a whole stable of different writers that contribute to the site, so you can get a very diverse variety of different takes and opinions and analysis on the team. And if you're interested in writing about the Twins yourself, it's very easy to start your own blog and work your way up to the front page. So come on by TwinsDaily.com and join the conversation.
Brian, what's interesting about Twins Daily is it doesn't matter really what kind of Twins coverage you like, because they all have it. You know how I like kids and prospects. I mean, you can go there once a month and find updates on almost every prospect coming through the
every
system.
level.
And so and they'll do it by position and the whole thing. So if you're a Twins fan, regardless of what level or even how long, right, it's your Twins place to go.
Absolutely. We are chatting with Nick Nelson of Twins Daily. And Nick, I feel like this is early to broach this topic, but we are right smack dab in the middle of June, so maybe it isn't. All-Star break will be here somewhat soon. There's been different campaigns on social media for this Twin should be an All-Star, this Twin should be an All-Star. It started with Ryan Jeffers. I feel like that's tailed off. Right now, it looks like Carlos Correa has been All-Star level. I'm in the Griffin Jacks camp, but it's hard to get a mid-reliever in there. Who's your Twins All-Star or All-Stars?
Yeah, I think the names you mentioned stand out as kind of the most likely candidates. Another name that I would bring up is Joe Ryan. He's been one of the best starters in the league. Again, a lot of competition for those starting pitcher spots. One name that I'll be kind of interested to follow if he keeps it up is Royce Lewis. I know the sample is very small, but
right.
When you're playing at this level and bringing this much excitement, I mean, that's a face you want at that All-Star showcase.
So you mentioned Joe Ryan. I want to piggyback off that and say this. There are a lot of statistics that will be analyzed when selecting All-Stars or, lamenting who gets in or who doesn't. I want to talk about a statistic that to me is starting to matter less and less, and that's pitching wins. Because if you look at the Twins starting staff, they're all right around that 5-6 mark, except for Simeon Woods Richardson because he started a little bit late in the rotation. But pretty much all of them got around 5 or 6 wins. And it would be blasphemy to say that, well, they've all pitched pretty much the same. No, they haven't. It's been Joe Ryan and everybody else, has it not?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty much the reason why people aren't paying that much attention to pitcher wins anymore, especially in an era where, 5 and 6 innings is pretty much the norm for a starting pitcher these days. That's not just a Twins or Rocco Baldelli thing as much as people want to make it out to be that. So, I don't pay much attention to it. I don't think that the All-Star voters really do anymore either, unless the guy has like a crazy 11-0 record or something.
Nick, today we've talked a little bit about dads, and Brian's going to get into this a little bit more, but I have a question about one of the things that we talked about early was who's the dad on the team? Who's the leader, the father figure? Using like Nelly Cruz during the Bomba squad as an example.
Yeah, and we said C4 going away. Do you think that's the case?
Yeah, that was definitely the name that came to my mind. I think he's got all the qualities. He's a leader by example. He's a little corny. He's a little nerdy sometimes. He's got sort of the dad joke-esque vibe to him. So I think he is kind of the father hen for this group, and that's a good dynamic for this team.
Speaking of fathers, one of the questions that we asked on social media, and it's going to be our final segment today once we're done chatting with you, but I like to ask our guests as well. We asked, what's your favorite sports memory involving your dad? When you're faced with that question, what would you say?
Oh, good one. I went to game 163 in 2009 at the Metrodome with my dad. So hard to pick anything other than that. It was probably the best sporting event I've ever been to, and it was really fun to be there with my pops, who's such a big part of the reason I'm a baseball fan. He really instilled that passion in me as a kid.
It is really something how dads can facilitate the love of baseball. I remember learning how to score a baseball game on the way down from Duluth to the Metrodome at one point. And then I've told this story 3,000 times on this show, but what's 3,001? My first game, Nick, for the Twins was against Oakland, ironically the team that's in town this weekend. But my first game, and this will tell you how old I am, Bert Blyleven notched his 3,000th career strikeout. Kirby Puckett hit for the cycle, and the Twins won 10-1. I thought baseball was just one giant party, and I was ready to come every day if I could.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
It was definitely tough to top without question. Speaking of tough to top, the Twins at times can be, and at times can't find their way to a win. What do you make of this group that I think the Oakland broadcast was saying they're somewhere in the likes of 0-14 against the top 3 teams in the American League and then dominating everybody else? So that being said, is this team good or not?
It's a great question. I don't know. I still can't figure it out. I feel like usually when you get to this point of the season here in mid-June, you have a pretty good idea of the caliber of your team. But the Twins have just been so Jekyll and Hyde up and down. I mean, they go through periods like this past week where they look great. I mean, they're showing fight. They're coming back. They had that huge blowout wipeout win on, Tuesday. But then, the previous week, getting shut out twice in a row by Pittsburgh, getting blown away again by the Yankees, just looking so inept at times. I would just love to see this team settle into a consistent sort of vibe for more than a couple weeks to be able to draw a conclusion. But until further notice, until they can notch one win against one of these kingpins in the American League, I don't know if I can put them in that class.
Well, and speaking of class, isn't this kind of put up or shut up time for this team? Because we've all kind of chided Cleveland. Now, they're off to a great start, but if I had $1 for every time I saw a social media post about, the Tribe or the Guardians, whatever you want to call them now, they don't play anybody, so that's why they're doing so well. Well, this stretch of the Twins' schedule, they're not really playing the powerhouses either.
Absolutely, yeah. You got to take care of business against the softer competition, and as you mentioned, the Twins have done a very good job of that so far, so this is the time to build up, get themselves healthily above 500, and hopefully set themselves up for another second half like last year. That's still very fresh in mind. You wish it wouldn't go like this every year where they just kind of struggle so long to kind of get out of the gates and get going, but we've seen what they can do when they lock in, and to me, the really encouraging thing about the Twins is that Correa, Lewis, and Buxton are all healthy right now. Buxton's starting to look a lot better. They're playing pretty well. So I think, with the health of this team, which to me is like really the underrated storyline, to knock on wood and everything, you got to feel pretty good about their ability to rattle off some wins and keep it going here.
I would agree with that. We're talking with Nick Nelson of Twins Daily. TwinsDaily.com covers just about anything you could possibly want within this organization. Nick, I talked about a moment ago, it feels early to talk about the All-Star game or the All-Star break, but it's coming. Let's be honest, it is early to talk about the trade deadline, but there's already been posts out there that they expect the Twins, if they're where they are now or hopefully even higher in the standings, they'll certainly be buyers. What could you see them buying? Because my first thought is another bridge reliever to Duran, because we can't have Griffin Jacks do it all. And somehow I thought Brock Stewart went on the IL. It turns out he went into the witness protection program, because if I wouldn't have seen him in the dugout during the Louis Varland start this week, Nobody knows what the deal is with Brock Stewart. Have you heard anything? And again, who do you think this team would take on positionally at the deadline?
Yeah, Brock Stewart's been very slow to go. I mean, it reminds me a lot of last year, right, where it was like he went on the injured list with what seemed to be a fairly low-severity injury, and then he missed like 2 months. But on the bright side, he came back and pitched really well in September and was an asset in the playoffs, so you hope that can happen again. I think maybe they're just trying to be cautious and manage his arm as well as they can, knowing how often he gets hurt. But I do think his status is going to have a big impact on how they approach the deadline, right? Because you're right, they need another relief arm as things stand. Another guy that I'm curious to keep an eye on here as we progress into the season is Varland. We saw him turn into a reliever late last year, and he was phenomenal. The results as a starter have been uneven this year, so how long until they decide to go that route again and unleash him in a role where they know he can be a power weapon?
Yeah, we've been talking about that in the show for a while, about how, you saw him as a starter with a 4 ERA and you sent him down to figure it out. You brought him back to be a bullpen guy, and he was, as you said, lights out. And then they say, let's roll back to that 5 ERA starter guy and see how that worked. But it certainly is. He had a nice start last time, but at what point do you say, let's work on some other starters and let's get Louis to be here and a dominant weapon?
Just like they did with Griffin Jacks, right, Nick?
Right.
Liam Hendricks,
I think I think you want to see it through as long as you can in the starting role, just because starting pitching depth is really valuable, especially for the Twins right now. But with Simeon Woods Richardson generally looking pretty good, with David Festa, their top pitching prospect in AAA, dominating in AAA and looking like he could be an option soon, that might be a more palatable move here for the Twins. But I still don't think they'll go that route until at least after the All-Star break.
Last question real quick. We do quarterly awards on this show for the Twins, and so next week they'll be roughly to the 80-game mark, and we'll call it good enough, and we'll give quarterly awards out. But we give positives and negatives, and some of the candidates for biggest disappointment 40 games into this season, not where they are now, but 40 games in, were the veteran acquisitions like Margot, like Santana. You look at the current state, do we owe both these guys apologies?
It's a great reminder of the nature of baseball, isn't it? I mean, guys look so bad for a while, and you get so down on them, and then almost invariably, unless they're cooked, like Christian Vasquez, and even Christian Vasquez has come around. I mean, these guys come around. That is baseball for you. The pendulum's going to swing back and forth. So yeah, I think those guys do deserve a lot of credit, especially Santana. He's actually, Margot looks fine. He's at least filling the role he was meant to, but Santana has been a pretty dang good player here for the last month or so, and quite an asset for this offense and defense.
Nick, one more chance to plug Twins Daily. We love it, but some folks may not be familiar. Make them familiar.
Yeah, thanks. TwinsDaily.com. New stories every day, several new stories every day. Very open to people that want to come write for the site and showcase their own writing chops and share their own opinions. And as you guys mentioned, lots of coverage of the minors. That's sort of our sweet spot and differentiator. So if you want to keep up with all these prospects and their seasons, and the system is really exciting this year, come by TwinsDaily.com and join us for the conversation.
Nick Nelson, we are bumping you all with I'll Be Missing You because we've missed you. And I'll tell you what, my biggest challenge when you're on with us is to remember to look at the clock, because I could talk to you for hours about baseball. You are welcome here anytime. Let's do it again soon.
Love it. I appreciate it, guys.
Have a great weekend. That's Nick Nelson of Twins Daily, one of our favorite guests and very much one of our favorite topics. The Minnesota Twins playing well right now, but again, the way the season has gone, prepare for more peaks and valleys. A lot of peaks with our dads. Fathers are the best, and we're going to talk about how we and our listeners feel about our dads. Tribute to Father's Day to close the show. We'll be right back.
This is going to be hard, guys.
It's going to be tough. Stick around.
What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
And we're back on the Northland Sports page. No bumper music needed here because usually when things are a little bit on the tearjerker side, a lot of telecasts and radio broadcasts don't include music. And we think for our Drawing Lines segment here today, this might be tough on us, but I think we're going to get through it because we both miss our dads beyond words and have incredible memories with our dads. And we asked our listeners, what's your greatest sports memory with your dad? And we're going to share a lot of those now for about the last 10, 15 minutes, more like 13 right in between. It's part of Drawing Lines, courtesy of Roll Architecture Studio today. Dave, I'll let you go first because you got some great ones.
Yeah, let's have some fun with this one, right? Because it's pretty high energy in any direction you're taking it today. So we'll start with this one, randomly drawn Avery.
To be your daughter.
My dad drove me down to my basketball state championship game in the cities when I was 10 or 11. I remember being really nervous and I could barely sleep, and he talked me back to bed each time with stories about games he played in when he was younger and how nervous he was beforehand and how it always seemed to work out in the end. And he'd play a good game and win because the nerves kept him fast. See, I don't remember that part, but it's not my story. After we lost the championship game the next day, and for context, we were undefeated that season, so this was the first basketball game I'd played organized that I'd lost. He told me that he made up all those stories the night before, and he didn't actually win all of his games. And I was genuinely shocked because before that moment, I was fairly convinced he had turned down all of his offers with the MLB, NHL, NFL, NBA to actually be my dad. That's true story. Since he would always have a story about playing those sports. And of course, knowing my dad, he may have embellished a few of them.
So that's one of those where they may say, never lie to your children. There can be a benefit sometimes if you just stretch the truth a little. Sounds like you did a banner job, Dave Cook.
Oh, yeah, well, and, stretch the truth, that's not something I normally do. So I got you.
So
you're up.
One of the things that my dad was most known for, and I just went on a road trip with my mom and some family friends last week and spent a lot of the car ride, kind of reminiscing about great trips with my dad. And there were so many, from UMD basketball down to Kansas City, multiple Twins games. I want to say this. There's no doubt in my mind as to why my dad was in great shape right down to his last days, because nowadays Shane Bauer mentioned ADA and accessibility and all that good stuff. And with cerebral palsy my entire life, as an adult going to games, I take full advantage of that. You've been with me when I've done that. Back in the day, it wasn't as available and my dad didn't take advantage of it. So I think of all the times that we went to games in the nosebleeds and I may have struggled to get up there and my dad carried me fireman style up 30 stadium stairs, whether I was 3 or 13.
Yeah.
So he was in unbelievable shape. He took me to all my first games. We talk about the 4 majors. My first Wild game was with my dad. My first Twins game, just told the story, was with my dad. My first Timberwolves game was with my dad. My first Vikings game, I saw a fake punt. I thought those were normal because I saw that with my dad. My dad was a get there unbelievably early guy. And he was never a let's leave early to beat the traffic guy. If it was 14-2, gosh darn it, we came down here from Duluth to Minneapolis, we were staying. Speaking of never wanting to beat the traffic, this would be an event if I had a chance to take it in with or without my dad. I would stay as long as I could. I think I want to see it in person. I'd take less joy in watching it on TV these days. But Jim in Champlin says taking my dad to the home run derby when it was at Target Field. That should have been a good one.
Oh, yeah, that had to have been fantastic.
I want to give you one of my favorites from John, who resides in Florida. I laughed as I read this. He said, I have 2 that immediately came to mind. When I first started Little League, I had a good arm, so I started pitching for the first time. I remember my dad marked off the mound distance in the backyard, and he would catch for me every day. That's great. That kind of thing you see and hear a lot. I can relate to that. I think my dad got tired of playing catch with me because one birthday I was gifted a pitchback. Here, throw it at this net. And when I'm not home, because I do have a job, something else can throw it back to you. But the other one that John shares is in about 3rd grade, my dad got a video camera and started recording my games. He was always vocal and really got into the games. I vividly remember during soccer and baseball, he would get excited about a play, and all of a sudden he was filming the sky. So, when you get excited, you kind of lose track of what's going on. But I love that because we always talk about your parents should be your biggest fans, and Dad was.
I really like this one, and this is from Mike. And Vikings fans, just take a listen to this. So June 98, my dad took my sister and I to a Cubs game. It was a perfect day. We had front row seats behind home plate to see our Cubs take on the crosstown White Sox. Best of all, it was right in the middle of the home run derby in 1998. Sosa went yard. Cubs win. And we sat next to Robin Ventura's wife. It's a great memory I'll always treasure with my dad. He passed away at the age of 51 in 2006. 10 years later, the Cubs won it all. There were a lot of tears that night.
Yeah. Wow, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
I've got another one from another Mike, this one in Hermantown. He kept it very simple, but can you imagine being at this in person with your dad, watching Rashad catch the Hail Mary at the Met?
Yeah, right? That had to be nuts because, I mean, if you weren't at the Met, I mean, think Lambeau, but on the cheap, right? And so you were shoveling stairs, you were doing everything to get to your seat, and to see that kind of game and that kind of weather.
So here's how I could relate that to me, because if it was my dad and I wonder which one of us would still be looking. If it was a nerve-wracking moment like the Hail Mary, because I remember one of the last Vikings games I went to with my dad. I had season tickets, and I had 2, so I took him to one, and the Vikings beat the Ravens on a last-second field goal miss by Baltimore. To this day, I never saw it. He did. I was staring down going, I'll go by crowd reaction, and thankfully, my dad kind of grabbed my arm. He missed it. He missed it. He missed it. So that was a big deal. My dad was also really, really big into curling, so I want to read this one. This is from Lynn in Duluth. I spent nearly every weekend in the winter for years watching both my mom and dad curl at the old curling club. We would watch for a while, go upstairs to go ice skating until we got cold, then go back downstairs and watch curling some more. When they were done, we got into the clubhouse with them. He's been gone 30 years, and I still miss him every day. Greatest memories ever. Sometimes it is the small things like that.
Yeah, no doubt. We have one, Amy from Walker. I have 2. Falling from the snowbank onto the outdoor rink during practice that my dad was coaching. So, I mean, back in the day when you'd be outdoors and they'd have to pile the snow over the boards, right? Because there wasn't enough space. And Dad being the only relative to watch my daughter when she won a JV cross-country race as an 8th grader. Thank God he was there to record it.
That's pretty perfect. I've got 2 from Jay in Duluth. This one takes some creativity. It says, my dad rigged up a bamboo pole goalpost in the front yard so that my brother and I could try to kick field goals. That I'd like to see.
Especially if it was towards the house.
I assure you, my dad never did that for me. The other one, this is great because I have certainly memories of being on a team with my dad. Mine was primarily slow-pitch softball, but this is an interaction with Dad. My dad was at nearly every one of my hockey games and always stood apart from the rest of the fans, so he was noticeable when I played. When we had a father-son game, we finally convinced him to play, even though he hadn't skated for decades. He actually scored a goal and trash talked some that day.
That's the best one.
That's good stuff right there.
All right, I got a couple for you, Brian. First, Andrew from St. Cloud. Going to my first and only NFL game. It was a preseason game at the old Viking Stadium. And if I remember right, they played the Chiefs. You know, even if you're not a huge sports person, that interaction with your dad.
Any first is just different.
Yeah. And this one I love. My dad took me to my first NASCAR race. He was really into racing and taught me all about the strategy, like knowing when to pit stop, racing lines, passing, and all sorts of stuff. But the best advice he gave me about watching a race is always pick a car to cheer for, because you don't know anything about the cars or the drivers racing, and it makes it a lot more fun. And that is very true.
That is exceptionally true.
Angie.
I know I'm going down to my sister's after the shows today. Again, Monster Weekend kickoff is from noon to 1, but after 1, I'll be en route to the cities for my niece's grad party. I want to chime in with a couple that will mean a lot to my sister, and one is from her. So Jill in Champlin said this. I vividly remember my dad's reaction to the Twins winning the World Series. Well, her dad is my dad, and so do I. I commented back, this was on social media, I said, I ran, in quotes, Brian's version, as is hip to say these days. I ran up the stairs and I jumped on him. That's one of my favorite celebrations with my dad as well. And you know, my sister eats, drinks, lives, breathes, dance. Emily in Duluth says, so many memories of my dad over the years, flooding the ice rinks at Portman while I would skate on the next rink over. T-ball games, soccer games, basketball games, and even shooting hoops in the driveway. Even more so, and this is a big one, is seeing my dad watching my children play their sports now. Yeah. And I cannot forget all the dance recitals he came to over the years because, as you guys know, this is a shout out to us for covering dance. Dance is a sport. I couldn't agree more.
100%. The next one is from a cousin of mine. And the crazy thing about this one is from a family that's not really a sports family, she's probably the biggest hockey fan I know. And not because she follows the Wild, but she's been to every rink in the NHL. So I broke my arm in 4th grade and was having trouble sleeping. So Dad woke me up, sat on the couch, and we watched my first hockey game. Instantly fell in love with the sport. Thanks, Dad. Now, instantly fell in love with the sport at that moment. This one, she is like the biggest, like I said, the biggest NHL fan I know.
That's pretty good. I've got 2. I've got Liz in Duluth says, I have vivid memories. My dad was a big Celtics fan back in the day. I have vivid memories of watching Bird, McHale, and Parrish against Magic and the Showtime Lakers. Absolutely, I do as well. I don't think to the very end my dad understood why I was such a big Celtics fan, but he knew it and he watched it anyway. And now this one, I don't like the Yankees. You don't either. That's no secret. But there are people of a certain age before the Twins that were very much
absolutely
Yankee fans. So this is Patty in Duluth, and I love this. We had a laugh about this before the show. When I was just a little kid, my dad would have the Yankees game on the radio on Saturdays when he was doing yard work. I remember sitting on the front porch with him listening to the game. I didn't understand a thing, but I knew Mickey Mantle was a big deal. By the way, I was born on Mickey Mantle's birthday. For years, the week before my birthday, my dad would ask me, what special day is coming up? And I would answer, Mickey Mantle's birthday. And we would laugh as if no one else in the world knew why that was the most special day coming up. It was a thing we shared for the rest of his life. That's awesome.
I like that one. This one is good, too. Don wrote, my pops took me to almost every Bulldogs hockey game in the 80s. Twins games, of course, and a few Vikings games. He passed away about a year ago unexpectedly, and it's been a really, really difficult year. You know, Don, that's a great story.
We get it.
And we get it.
Yeah,
absolutely. And the last one that I have, Jackie wrote, my dad was a high school football coach when I was in high school. They were down 0-21 at half. They came back, and when they won in the quarterfinals, he ran into the stands and hugged me. It's something I'll never forget.
Absolutely. We'll never forget our dads either. One more that I have, but it's a little long and we're pressed for time. Carl in Duluth gave us a great baseball memory about going to Cleveland games with his dad. He grew up about 45 miles outside of Cleveland.
In the lake?
Right. So anything but a mistake for him and his dad. So we've only got about a minute. We posed it to everybody else real quick. Your best sports memory with your dad.
So the one that I haven't talked about before is national anthem related. I remember at the Met when they'd put the words up on the old scoreboard, and I was sitting there once, and my dad looked at me and he goes, "You live here. Stand up. The words are on the screen. Sing along." And so I always sing along.
Yeah, I can vouch for that because usually when I'm tootling with buttons or whatever I'm doing during the national anthem at a game we cover, Dave's belting it out next to me. So that tracks 100%. I, too, had to think of one that I haven't talked about before because in almost 7 years on this show, I feel like I've told them all. I haven't said much about when I played for my dad as a slow-pitch softball player and he was my coach. As a kid with cerebral palsy, I know that my expectations are limited, but only in the eyes of most others, not in my dad. My dad knew how much we worked on my game out in the yard and how well I should do with a bat in my hand or with a glove on. And apparently we're
and
out.
That's that.
I swear, he just told me that I should have had one at first base. We really were pressed for time. Monster Weekend Kickoff is next. Have a good weekend.
Summer concerts, pool parties, chill nights under the stars. We're stocking up our closet so you're ready to look your best for all of it. At Plato's Closet in West Ashley and North Charleston, we're buying all things summer. So bring in your tees, tote bags, sandals, sunglasses, and more. We pay cash on the spot for gently loved name brand looks. Plato's Closet is the go-to destination for trend-forward teens and young adults who support local and shop sustainable. Visit Plato's Closet today. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.